And my name is Adham Ramadan. And currently I'm from the chemistry department at UC. I originally was a student at UC some time ago, and then I joined the UC as a faculty member 10 years ago. And when I joined, CLT had just started, and sort of it managed very successfully to draw in a number of faculty in some of the activities they're doing, and I was sort of involved with them from very early on. And sort of, I think, helped and inspired different faculty members and got me to try new things in class, try new sort of teaching approaches. So I've been collaborating with them ever since. I'm currently the chair of the department, so I have less time to do things like what I call fun things, but hopefully, within a couple of years, I can go back and do my fun stuff with them again. So this is a presentation about a course portfolio. The thing is that during the presentation, I'll try to talk about what a course portfolio is, how can it actually help learning, how can it help the teacher or the instructor achieve learning outcomes, what are the learning outcomes, and maybe we'll do an exercise. At some point we'll stop and do an activity either together or individually. And to try to explain what it is or the approach that I've followed, I'm using an example of one chemistry course. So I know this probably will not be fun for anybody, but I'm not really going into the stage of the course.
I love chemistry.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a chemistry major. I ended up in
there is somebody I rely on. So basically, I'm just using that as an example to try to get the sort of ideas clarified or to have a complete example about what we're talking about. Basically, I sort of got interested in developing this course portfolio when I've been teaching this course I've been talking about for a number of years, and then I realized things are not going smoothly, and through CLT I got to know about portfolios, and then the rest is history, as we said. So basically, as some of you might know, a course portfolio is simply the collection of the student work for a course. So there are different ways of having a course portfolio. You can have a faculty course portfolio where you actually collect your own notes, activities, exercises, whatever. And this is, I think a lot of us do that. There is a sort of a move to encourage students to have their own portfolios. So to have the collection of all their exercises, activities, papers, field visits, reports, whatever, collectively in one location. And of course do a bit more of it than just have it as a repository of material. And very importantly, in my experience with course portfolios, it should definitely include reflections. So it should get the students to reflect on their own learning process, to think about and write. If you're teaching Arabic, you really actually maybe can get them to do it in Arabic. Reflect on their own learning process. As you see, what difficulties am I having? Why am I having these difficulties? What are the challenges, etc. It actually puts the student in a state of consciousness of what difficulties they have. In my experience, I realized students come to realize through the students, if there are things that we need to go through again, if there are certain skills the students are lacking that are obvious, that are not very obvious and otherwise. So this reflection part is very important. Typically, of course.
Okay, الريفلكشنز كل قد ايه؟ اوكي طيب والريفلكشنز
I'll talk about it as examples of what I did in my course, and then probably you'll have to sort of think how to apply it in your own thing. The typical format, when you roll at school, I think class teachers ask us to have a folder with them. You can have a hard copy. And now there are fancy software that are quite simple to use where people can actually have this electronically. And CLT actually have access to a couple of these software. So if you decide to use it for yourself or for your students, CLT can definitely help you with setting up the e-portfolio accounts and so the idea is that how is keeping a portfolio useful? How can it be useful? The way I think about it is that we can really divide this usefulness into two categories. One, as you see, is having a bullet point, and this is, as instructors, this is typically what we would all think of to start with. It will help me assess the student's progress and performance. So, there is a collection of material. I can see through reviewing this material, the material available all the time, how the student progresses. What we're trying to talk about is really a shift in that focus, and with a focus on the learning process rather than the assessment process. And it does, as we see examples, it will actually help the students learn or play a more active role in their learning, because especially through the reflections, because that it will make them, as I will explain, to make them more conscious of the problems they individually have. It helps developing learning by construction. So basically, you have that skill, then you build on it that skill, then you build on it that skill, and the students will actually be conscious of that building process, and therefore they grasp the construction process much easier. It actually promotes students' reflective practices, how to actually think about their learning process, and how to identify problems, and how to actually identify solutions for themselves with your guidance, the guidance of the instructor. And then, of course, if you like, you can always add a part where you have peer instruction or peer evaluation, where students would actually be evaluating colleagues in a friendly manner, collectively, or actually helping colleagues in their own problems. So if the portfolio is there, this actually becomes much simpler, or much more, you can probably a lot of activities that you carry out in class normally will have that, but having a portfolio will actually have it constructed in a more organized or set fashion. And very importantly, the issue where the reflective practices and peer evaluation and instruction does help greatly self-assessment for the students. So the students will be able, by carrying out these reflective practices, by carrying out activities where they evaluate peers or they will help instruct peers, they will actually become more aware of their learning process, and they become more aware of being able to assess their own progress and assess their own difficulties or weaknesses. So I'll try to zoom in and focus on the example of the chemistry course, and then from that example maybe draw general conclusions and leave. So basically this is a chemistry course 3 or 4, it can be any number, but it's a physical chemistry course. It's called thermodynamics of solution. Basically, the essence of the learning, it has a number of learning outcomes, but the essence of the learning outcomes is the need to apply certain theoretical principles that are quite difficult for students. Students find it quite difficult to apply these, to understand the principles, to tackle them. So, and they need to apply these to sort of, as I say, account for, explain, quantify, make calculations for behaviors that you see. It deals with solutions like sugar in water, for example, or salt in water, or different types of solutions day to day, or actually more industrial based or more technically based situations. So they need to really understand the concepts and theories and try to apply this to explain observed behaviors. Why would actually, when you put salt on water, why would the water freezing point not be 0, be -1, for example? Things that actually have day-to-day applications. The main challenges are the fact that the concepts are quite challenging. These concepts that we're dealing with are things that the students they're not intuitive. They are people really struggle with the concepts. And then they are incremental. So the same thing is that we have to start with a simple concept, and maybe when it comes to language instruction, it's incremental, it's very similar. We start with a basic concept or a basic scale, and then you have to really build on it to move to the next level, build on it to move to the next level within the course. So the challenge with that is that if this first skill or the first founding step or stone or knowledge or whatever is not clear in the student's mind, then what comes following that is something that goes beyond them. They actually, if they do not form the strong basis or proper basis, then they will actually continue struggling and they will lag behind very quickly. In chemistry course, probably something that you would not have typically in a language class, in a language course, is that there is a numeracy. They have to do calculations, and the calculations are, once the actual mathematics is very simple, but the situation, to analyze the situation and understand how to solve the problem is the tricky part. So there are a lot of analytical, we need to analyze the situation. Once they understand what the situation is, then the actual mathematics of it is very simple. So there is an analytical part that is quite complex, and it requires, what I say, creating solutions rather than have fixed, I always tell people, I always tell the students, they come from a background typically in a school environment in Egypt where they are coached during the academic year on how to reproduce solutions, how to reproduce answers. We have these types of questions. If you get this type of question, this is the way to answer. If you get this type of problem, this is the way to solve it. And it's subjected to this for 10 years, a decade. So this is the way they want a type of material question or a type of problem that they need to train on over and over and over and over again, and so that when they come in an exam or an assignment or a real life situation, they just reproduce the answer rather than creating an answer. And as I always tell them, we're not in the circus. We're not training people to walk on a high floor, so you have to repeat it every day. Then the day of the performance, you don't everybody class. You need to be able to, whatever, if you know the concepts and you know how to analyze the situation, you'll be able to solve anything that you actually get just by mental process. So basically, yes. Sorry. So basically, this requires continuous, regular engagement of the students, and I think this is the essence of all courses in all disciplines, is that the students need to be continuously engaged in the coursework, because if they don't do that, they will not be able to have incremental sort of improvement, and they definitely not be able to create solutions rather than just reproduce solutions. And the challenges I've had in this course is that people think, or students think, it's a bit difficult, so let us leave the assignments till 1 week before the exam. It doesn't work. And I've tried many other techniques, as you have seen. I tried assignments at the same time. Maybe the best thing is that just bombard them with assignments and ask them to have regular sort of handing of assignments for me to look at and discuss with them, etc. I realized that usually they leave everything to the last minute. They rush to do the assignment. They solve, I'm putting between the copy. I think some of them would actually, when they rush, they actually share results or share it. So it doesn't really, it defies the purpose, because the whole purpose is for them to do it themselves. So if they're actually getting help from others by copying, then it defies the purpose. They hand in. Once they hand in, they already, it's out of the rush is over. And then complain when they get the grade they don't want. And then they always complain also about the rush. So, I've tried this and it didn't work. The other thing I said, fine, forget assignments, or forget graded assignments. I'll tell you these are the assignments you want to try them out. Forget graded, I'll do quizzes. So I said, these are assignments and we just do quizzes, and if you prepare your assignments, you'll be able to, announce quizzes, you'll be able to do a little quiz. We realize that they stress out about it tremendously, because they have this, I think something against exams, grades, solve, forget about it. And then when they get the grade up, they're always disappointed, and then it's always the hope for a better grade next time. Let's do it again. It doesn't really get them engaged continuously in the process. So it took me a while to realize that this is not working either. So I decided to actually look at this course portfolio issue, and basically to try to address this issue of them not being engaged in a continuous manner. So they have to be there, they have to, the idea of their continuous engagement is their continuous engagement to really develop, or for them to really implement or achieve the course learning outcomes. So if the learning outcomes of this course is for them to apply, to understand the theoretical concepts and apply them to real life examples, they need to do that on a continuous manner. And basically, the idea or the model that this promotes to this promotes is they try, think about the problem, they solve, they stop and reflect about what they've done themselves. Have I had difficulty in that? What difficulty did I have? Then go back through this reflection process, go back and identify the problems they are having themselves. Then go back and say, okay, this is a problem that I have. Why do I have this problem? And how can I solve that problem? Do I need to go and go to the instructor? Do I need to go and check with my colleagues? Do I need to spend more time doing this? Do I need to... It actually focuses the problem in their minds very, very much. Then once they've done that, they can go, I mean, some students go through that loop once, sometimes some of the students will have to go through that loop 5 times. They just go through the loop. And then of course they come back to the instructor for assistance. Then usually they get it, perform better, and we have lots of smiley faces. So, I asked the students, the issue with the portfolio is 2 things, or 3 things. The first one is that there is a need for you as an instructor to really think about it and decide what will you require for them to be kept in the portfolio. You can come and say, the easiest thing to come and say at the beginning of the semester, everything in it. When you say everything, it's not really going to be helpful for you. You need to specify what's the minimum amount of material, or what's the minimum, and the items. What are the items that you really want to have in the portfolio? It's very flexible. But personally, I decided I told them, please put trials of solving problems. It doesn't have to be reaching the final answer. It doesn't have to be correct. It doesn't, just your trials. You've tried once, twice, 3 times, you've had problems, you've come and asked me, you've checked another book, you've checked with colleagues, you tried again. Just put the include the trials in the portfolio. What I want to see is your actual activity rather than the final outcome, or the final outcome. If you have any extra readings or any extra activities that you've done, put notes on them in the portfolio. This is what I ask. If you have class notes or book readings, I used to sometimes assign them sort of bonus readings, etc. Include these in the portfolio. But your notes, your own, I mean, don't put the reading, but just put your reflection on the reading. Was this something difficult? Was it something easy? Did I have difficulty in that? What difficulty did I have? Etc. And these reflections will actually help them formulate the problems clearly in their mind. So this is very important. For a portfolio, there is a need to agree with students. Well, from the beginning of the course or whatever, what is it that will constitute the elements of the portfolio? The more specific you are, the better it's going to be for you and for them. Because you want to make sure that everybody is putting the same material so that when you come and collectively compare the performances, you are aware of who's doing what and who is having what difficulties. Of course, the other thing is that the portfolios need to be kept updated. There is no point of sticking things in at the beginning of the semester and then forgetting all about it. They have to, it's a daily activity. Every time you're doing an exercise, I mean in language, I have no idea about language. You will tell me about that. If they go down on the street and they have a conversation with somebody and they have difficulties in that, just put it, like a diary, day-to-day interactions or activities of this. The thing is that, of course, the challenge is that it does require that the instructor collects the portfolio on a regular basis and goes through the whole thing.
How many once a month, once a week?
It depends really. I personally did it 4 times a semester.
4 times.
Personally, in the chemistry. The semester is 15 weeks, so 4 times is approximately every 3 to 4 weeks. Usually, typically I will have between 5 and 10.
That's it.
Only.
Yeah. I don't know how large your classes are. You have large. 9 students. Okay. 9 students. So this is a challenge.
But if you had 30 students, would you do it? Yeah.
Basically, what happens is that if you have 30 students, because this is what people ask usually when I talk about this, I have 30 students. How do I do it? Usually, typically, you resort to not collecting it as many times, or not only that, but actually get this, built in the sort of peer evaluation and peer instruction within the activity. So you see, today when there is a need to look at the portfolios, people bring the portfolios and maybe you have a half a class session or half a class where people look at each other's portfolio. Don't focus it on you.
usually have an assistant or two assistants.
If you have. So there is, people usually are shocked by the fact that this needs to actually be collected and looked at individually for each individual student for you to really assess what's happening and come back with. And personally, when I collect them, I do write on the side, comments for them. And the other thing is that I typically do not give them.
What do you assess when you have a look at the portfolio? Yeah, I imagine.
I'll mention just now. So I think the next slide, this is one of the important things that are very useful, not very useful, very crucial for a portfolio. But the thing is that usually when you would not want to give them the deadline for the portfolios from the beginning of the semester. If they do that, everybody will do nothing, and just 1 week before the deadline, they actually start collecting. It defines the purpose. It's not a continuous learning experience. So typically, I collect them from the beginning. I will actually, I don't tell them I'll collect them how many times. These will typically be collected a number of times during the semester, and typically I let you know 2 to 3 days in advance that I'm collecting that on that. So it needs to be updated continuously. And of course, I do remind them, are you updating your portfolios? Because otherwise, people will just, and usually typically 2 to 3 days so that whoever did not do it will not really have time to really thoroughly do it. So.
Is the performance of this task graded? Do you put...
I'll come to that as well.
It's important for
very important.
Kids as young students. Has to be graded.
The issue is, when we come about the assessment, I am going to assess the content of the portfolio, or let's put it this way, on the content of the portfolio, I'm going to assess what is in there, and I'm trying to focus, and this is where I found it worked best, not to actually assess on the output. I assess the effort. I do put a grade. I did put a grade on this. I have to say that it's not 90% of the grade, but it's equivalent to an exam. If my exams are 25% each, it's an equivalent of an exam. So it's a sizable portion of the grade. The thing is that if people do it, and I think students are quite clever, so they realize it very, very early on. If they actually update it regularly, it's 25%.
It's a lot.
Per year. I did that, but if you choose to put 20%, 15%, but if you put it quite low, they will realize very quickly, it's not worth the bother. They might do it just for the 10%, but they'll not do a thorough job of it. So it has to be a chunkable prize behind it. And my assessment of it, I realize it works best when I assess effort. So it doesn't matter that they actually solve the problem correctly. It does not matter that they actually managed to do all the problems. What matters really is the fact that they had a record of their efforts in working on the problem. They have some effort in identifying what problems they have. They have some reflective parts where they say, I could not solve that problem, or I could not do that exercise because I realize I have weaknesses or I have difficulties in 1, 2, 3. Then maybe on that, the following time you collect it, maybe I'll be looking whether following that comment, whether they have done something about it. Did they come and talk to me? Did they actually go and look it up? Did they, And progress is very important. And when I say progress, every time I collected the portfolio, I actually assessed it from day 1. So rather than saying, I collected the first time, so I assessed the first 4 weeks. I collected the second time, so I assessed only the following 4 weeks. No. First time? Development. So the progress throughout it. So the first time I look at 4 weeks. The second time I look at the initial 4 weeks and the following 4 weeks, so that they know that if they identify a difficulty in their first month, and during the second month they go back to that difficulty and work on it, then actually they'll still be sort of credited for that. So of course it's a bit of a challenge because by the end of the semester you actually look at the whole thing. But it does work. I realized when I first started it, I didn't do that. And then I realized that as you move through that mode, the students actually have an incentive of going back to initial problems they had early on and look them up try to see whether try to see whether they've been addressed or not, and also it shows them how they actually progress through the course. So a problem that I had in the first couple of weeks, 6 weeks into the semester, I do go back and look at it and realize it's no longer there because I've developed enough skills that addresses the problem. So that actually gives them a good sense of their own progress and a good sense of their own sort of learning process.
Excuse me, but you are assuming that they are very honest.
Yeah, the thing is that this can only work based on mutual trust.
Yeah,
They don't, and that's not the thing.
sometimes kids, you know.
No, but I'm telling you, if they, I mean, I'm a strong believer that whatever control system is in place, not only in a class, there is always a way to use it. So it's either, do you want to do this or not? If you want to sit there and
Just
jump down, fine. I look at it, I write comments, I realize that maybe first time I will not realize that you'll not be doing anything about it, but as we progress I realize you're just doing it.
But do our students at the AUC, my sons, do they have the sense of the awareness why they're doing the mistakes, to write the reflections علشان دايما اصل انا ما ذاكرتش، اصل انا ما راجعتش، اصل انا ما بصيتش
The
بسرعه.
excuse I mean it's less now, but that used to drive me up the wall. After the exam students come, why did I do that? Why did I think it's a frame of mind. Unfortunately, students, two things. Although we have a diversity of schooling systems in Egypt, the teachers have this, or the teaching environment have this mentality, Zekertinga. It's not Zekertinga, like a Zekertinga. And it's not, killing Zeker is not something that is necessarily very clear to them. Zeker is very natural. And therefore they feel that لو أنا قعدت 6 ساعات على الكتاب, then I should actually get a final written exam. So when I do badly, I come to the teacher and say, it's your problem now. I've done my share. It's your problem. Why am I not getting a grade? And I'm like, and it takes, and I notice this in the freshman students when I teach 100 level. Also, I notice this a lot, and I talk of time. It's very difficult to apply this for freshman students because they do not have the awareness to start reflecting. I usually do that with sophomores and juniors and seniors. And it's just, the whole idea of the exercise is to get them out of that side. It's, let's move out of Zekertinga. Let's move out of, think away from Zeker. Think of it as reading, reflecting, thinking about it, assessing yourself, and identifying your own problems. And what I try to explain is identifying the problem is the first step to actually solving it. So